Hey there, it's Dr. Mary Barbera here, and I am here to talk about my new book, Turn Autism Around, an action guide for parents of young children with early signs of autism. I'm actually going to talk about chapter 2, which is entitled, Is it Autism, ADHD, or Just a Speech Delay? So we are going to cover that tonight on this very hopefully short Facebook Live. I made a commitment actually to come on here live every day in March. The book actually gets shipped March 30th, so 30 days before the book to come out. So as I said, for those of you just joining me, I'm Dr. Mary Barbera, and I'm here tonight to talk briefly about my book, Turn Autism Around, an action guide for parents of young children with early signs of autism. We're going to be discussing chapter 2, which is all about, it's called, Is it Autism, ADHD, or Typical is it autism, ADHD, or just a speech delay? And we're going to talk about the signs, the early signs of autism, and they often overlap with the early signs of speech delays and ADHD and sensory processing issues and learning disabilities. And even some kids that go on to be gifted tend to have some social delays, maybe some restricted and repetitive interest. So a lot of times with toddlers and preschoolers, these delays show up, and it is difficult to tell if it's autism or not. So if you are here, I see we have a couple people. Lily Daisy is here. She's a top fan, and I think she's in it to win it. She's attended, I think, all 3 of my Facebook Lives, and she's also a member of my online course and community. So you can get all the details about pre-ordering my book at turnautismaround.com. And if you pre-order right now, we're going to close up the launch team soon, and some of these bonuses are going to go away. But right now, you can join our launch team. You can get the first 2 chapters. I'm going to review chapter 2 tonight briefly. And really, my message is it doesn't matter if it is autism or it's something else. The same kind of parent engagement tools will work. The same kind of early intervention tools will work to increase talking, decrease tantrums, improve eating, sleeping, potty training, going to the doctor's, dentist, going to preschool or daycare. All of these disorders and issues can all be treated in a very child-friendly, positive approach, and you can see strides. Okay, so thank you. And Lily is in Australia, I believe, so she is joining us on her morning. This is a little later than I've been on for my other couple lives, but I just grabbed a bite to eat with a friend, and I just got back, and I'm like, oops, I got to go on and do my live. So, okay, so we are going to talk about chapter 2 of my book. And some of the signs, and for those of you that don't know me, I have been in the autism world for over 2 decades. First, when my firstborn son, Lucas, started showing signs of autism when he was 21 months of age, is when my husband first mentioned the possibility. I didn't want to hear it. I had no idea what to look for in a toddler. I had just had my second son. I was overwhelmed. And I told him on that day I never, ever wanted to hear the word autism again. And then now, 2 decades later, I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm still a registered nurse. I have a PhD. I've written 2 books now. One is my first book, The Verbal Behavior Approach. It's available in over a dozen languages. I've traveled around the world speaking on autism. And my brand new book, Turn Autism Around, which it really addresses the issue of, like, I needed this book and this information in 1998 when my husband first mentioned the possibility of autism with Lucas, because I had no idea. The internet was just getting started. There was no such thing as Google or Facebook. I was really very unaware of how much I could do. But now, years later, I have trained thousands of people, both in person and online. I probably trained over 1 million people if we're going to just count video views on some of my blogs and those sorts of things. So more information about my book, turnautismaround.com. I can even put that up on the screen, maybe. It seems like I have technical problems, but okay, there it's on the screen. Turnautismaround.com for all the details. If you want to watch the rest of this, though, before you go check that out. And if you have a question related to what I'm talking about, I might answer it at the end, but I just want to kind of go through some of the warning signs. I tell a lot of stories in the book of former clients. We talk about the spectrum. The spectrum of autism is huge. We have children at various ages and ability levels, some not talking, not potty trained, have severe tantrums, all the way up to former clients of mine who are in college, driving, people with corporate jobs and all kinds of things. So spectrum is really wide. I really want to focus on, especially with this new book, on very young children with signs of autism, with or without a diagnosis, because I now know, working with many, many children, both with and without the diagnosis in the Birth to 3 program in my county, that these techniques all work. Okay, so some of the red flags for autism, if I say a red flag, doesn't mean your child has autism. I'm not able to physically diagnose your child, even if I saw your child. So I'll tell you what to do at the end before I get off too. So lack of pointing is a big red flag. And my son Lucas used to point, and then he stopped pointing around 15 months of age. So if your child doesn't point by 18 months, 2 years, and they are not talking, that is a big red flag. Pointing with your index finger, not reaching for things. Kids should have a point, and they should point for things they want, like juice, but they should also point up into the sky to show you an airplane going by. And kids with autism, some of them, especially when they're young, under 2, usually show a lack of pointing. And I do say in here that, keep in mind, this is one thing. Like, I did interview somebody who said, her pediatrician said he can point, he's not autistic. That was wrong too, because the child did have autism. Okay, a second sign of autism, and all of these things really, is speech and language delays. Whether you have a baby, that could be lack of back and forth babbling, lack of putting one word utterances out by age 1, lack of putting words together by age 2, lack of conversational skills and forming sentences by 3. And these are rough estimates. And some people have preemies. Some people have kids with articulation problems. And there's the whole gamut, which just really confuses things. So I'm going to tell you what to do, but those are definitely language delays are usually a red flag for a very young child. Excessive tantrums. Most typically developing kids have tantrums, but kids with lack of communication tend to have more tantrums. Although my son Lucas, who's now 24 years of age, he was never really like a high maintenance tantrumy kid. He was pretty laid back. And I remember one of the evaluators coming to my house and saying, well, what if you tell him, he's doing something he really likes, and you tell him, all done, it's time to go to the next place. And I was just like, he thinks the next place might be better. And so he was always pretty laid back about transitioning, and not a huge tantrum kid, more of a quiet kid. So, there's an example. Not responding to a name, when your name's called, like Johnny, and you don't turn around and you don't pay attention. So that can be a red flag. I do have a video blog on responding to name and how to teach that. It's also in this book. Playing behaviors are delayed, usually for kids that aren't talking. Their play and social skills are delayed too, so they might be able to play with toys that like a hammer and ball, but they're already 2 or 3 years old, and that's a 12-month toy. So being delayed with play, not pretend playing in the 2-year-old class, not sharing, not interacting with children. Repetitive behaviors are another one, being hyper-focused on lining things up or stacking the same things over and over again, or putting straws in a bottle, or just being repetitive. Also, restricted interests on kids that do have language. They might be like hyper-focused on trains or washing machines or Google Maps. Restricted and repetitive interests are sometimes a red flag. But like I said earlier, it could also mean that your child is gifted. And some kids have autism and are gifted, or have ADHD and are gifted too. Insistence on sameness, like they want to take the same way to the mall. They want to, once they're inside the mall, they want to go in the same order. That was a case for Lucas. Kids with autism tend to have sensory issues, like covering their ears, or picky eating is a lot of times a sensory problem because they don't like the texture or the sight. And actually picky eating is a diagnostic factor in diagnosing autism. Motor delays and toe walking. Many of my clients, and it has been shown in research that many kids with autism do end up walking late. My son with autism walked at 14 months. And my typically developing son walked at 11 months. And also with motor delays, there could be toe walking, which wasn't really an issue with Lucas. And finally, imitation skills can be delayed. So that's the way most kids learn language, is through imitation. Like they say ba 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 ba, and then all of a sudden the parents like, oh, ba 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 ba, or ma 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 ma, and they start kind of imitating back and forth. Imitating with play, like oh, let's pretend to brush our teeth, and the child might brush their teeth, pretend, without any toothbrush, or let's pour some tea, and children would start to imitate, but kids with autism typically don't start to imitate on their own. You have to actually teach them to imitate. So this is a whole big list of things, and a child could have 3 or more of these and turn out to just be speech delayed, or turn out, not to get diagnosed with autism, or like I said, they might point, and any loss of skills is also a big deal. So if a child regresses, and this week's podcast, I just talked about regression a fair amount with Casey, one of our online members. Okay, let me just check the comments and make sure we don't have any pressing questions about this topic before I tell you kind of the few things I would do regardless. Okay, so somebody's saying here, my son was diagnosed with sensory processing disorder and is on a wait list for a developmental pediatrician. He understands a lot, but doesn't really speak other than mom, dad, and sibling name. Yeah, so, this book is perfect for somebody like you that has some words, like Lucas had some words I didn't know how to teach him to talk back 2 decades ago. In this book, it basically teaches you all of that. And about half of our members in our toddler, preschool, or online course do not have a diagnosis for their kids. So it's a very supportive community. Camilla's saying my son covers his ears, and one of them is very picky with eating. Yeah, so we have a whole chapter on problem behaviors. We have a whole chapter on eating, a whole chapter on sleeping, a whole chapter on potty training. It's just, I'm really excited about this book. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you the couple things. Kelsey is here, and Kelsey is our community manager, and Kelsey has read the book and given an endorsement. Let me go here, and I will find Kelsey's endorsement and read it to you, if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So Kelsey started with my online course when her son was 2.5, and she got her son's head banging from 100 times a day to near zero levels. So Kelsey said for my book, Mary's information in her new book, Turn Autism Around, is life-changing for any parent noticing delays in their children. Following her easy step-by-step action plans set me on a path to help my boys. If you want to turn hopeless into hopeful and empowered, this book is for you. And Kelsey's younger son, Lincoln, also went on to get a diagnosis. But in the time between both of her sons' diagnoses, Kelsey was able to learn the tools in this book. Actually, she learned them in the online course, but you'll get definitely a preview in this book. So thank you for being here, Kelsey. I have never met Kelsey in person. We were hoping to meet in 2020. That went out the window because Kelsey is in Canada and I am in Pennsylvania. So hopefully this pandemic will be behind us soon. What advice will you give a parent with a child with autism looking to open an ABA agency? I would not open an ABA agency. I think it's a ton of work. And if you're very gung-ho about ABA, I would take my online course. You can find out all the information at marybarbera.com. But I would not want to deal with insurance reimbursement and all the regulations. And if you're a parent and you have a child with autism, I would focus on helping your child as much as possible. Mira's listening from Melbourne, Australia, which I've been to Melbourne twice. I've been to Australia 3 times. I spoke in Melbourne twice, like a decade ago. And my most recent time speaking there was in 2017. I also have been to Brisbane. Okay. So let me tell you the couple things that I would do. How can I get the book? It's right on the screen. Go to turnautismaround.com. There's instructions for pre-ordering the book, and then you have to put your customer number, your name and email address. That'll get you into our Facebook community where you can read the first 2 chapters while we wait for the book. Lehigh Valley area, and I am in Wyomissing, so I am about an hour from you. I do not provide any in-person one-to-one work, but I do provide a lot of training for people, both parents and professionals from over 80 countries. So, Okay, so let me tell you a few steps you can take if you notice any signs or if there's any worry that your child has any delays. And even if they don't have any delays, if you want to work on engaging them, getting them to increase language, decrease problem behaviors, you can still learn a lot. So step number 1 that I say in chapter 2 is to actually finish reading the book and learn my approach. I used to say, like, right away, go to your pediatrician, find ABA, get a diagnosis, get early intervention. And now I've seen, actually, Kelsey's here, she did go to an ABA clinic and they were doing the wrong things. And so I really want you as parents and professionals who are listening to be using my approach, which is based on all the science of ABA. It's based on my background as a mom, my background as a registered nurse for over 3 decades, my background as an advocate for kids. We don't use a lot of the traditional ABA procedures that cause kids to cry. We don't like crying. It's positive, it's proactive, it's empowering parents. So finish reading my book, learn which professionals you need and how to get them. If you were looking to, you already have a diagnosis, you're looking for ABA, I would search autism, ABA, BB map, which is what my courses really go on. And then I would put your city and state. Okay, so step number 2 is to learn typical developmental milestones and compare them to your child's development. I found that the Centers for Disease Control website, Act Early website, will show you what should a 4-month-old be doing, what should an 18-month-old do, what should a 30-month-old do. And there's where you can really tell, not just about their language, but should they be imitating? Should they be doing in terms of self-care, like drinking from an open cup, using utensils, calming themselves down, whether they should be crawling or walking or putting 2 words together, or, all those kind of things. So you have to look in all areas at the CDC website based on your child's chronologic age. And if they are 18 months old, but functioning really across the board at a 15-month-old level, it might just be a little bit delayed. But if you have a 3-year-old and they're functioning at 12-month-old or 9 to 12-month-old, like Lucas was in terms of language, then you probably have more of a gap that you should really be on. And step number 3 in my book is actually to begin your own assessment using the modified checklist for autism in toddlers, as well as the assessments within my book, to really start turning things around. I do also recommend, if you're pretty sure that it is autism, that you should probably make a sick appointment to discuss your concerns with your child's pediatrician, to talk about your concerns with your child's daycare if they go, and you, if you are in the United States, can call early intervention in your county. You can search for early intervention in your city and state and county, and you should be able to get a free or very low cost assessment. Okay, so again, you can pre-order the book, join the launch team, read the first 2 chapters at turnautismaround.com. So somebody said here, I'm scared to take my daughter to the doctor. And I was scared. I was scared of autism. I was scared of anything being wrong with Lucas's development. But the problem is that me sticking my head in the sand really made things worse. So the time to get on it is now, and there's lots you can do. Even in the month before the book comes out, you can join the launch team, read the chapters, attend a free workshop, maybe join my online course and community. You need to take charge and help your child catch up. It's just no other way around it. I know you're scared. I know it's scary, but kids can do really well, and parents can learn what to do. Anish said, I'm learning from Mary. Thank you for teaching us. Well, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I am going to hop off. Hope you enjoyed that brief tutorial on chapter 2 of my book. There is hope that you can catch any delays up. You can teach pointing. You can teach response to name. You can teach talking. I have the answers in my online courses, and now going to be out in this book. So join our world. I'll be back on here at some point tomorrow because I am on day 3 of 30 of Facebook Lives and YouTube Lives. So come set your notifications on that you'll hear me if I go live, because I don't want to plan the 30 days of when I'm going live. So set your notifications. I'd love to see you. And maybe there'll be a prize for those of you like Lily who are consistently showing up. Okay. Hope to see you on our book launch team, turnautismaround.com for all the details. Thanks so much. Have a great night or day, depending